Hi guys, doing this is Captain Spencer Clark with Breaking Bass Guide Service down here at Table Rock Lake. It's been about a week and a half or so since I did one of these fishing reports for Table Rock down here. I thought I'd just hop on here and get you guys a up-to-date fishing report after all the guide trips I had this past weekend. This weekend I was on the water pretty much from sun up to sundown both days. Had 4 trips this past weekend, so I was out there quite a bit and had some really good trips. We caught a lot of really good fish. I was sort of surprised that the fishing was as good as it was this past weekend because didn't have a whole lot of wind out there, and it was bright bluebird skies the last couple of days. And usually on Table Rock, those days are a little bit tougher, but managed to catch some really good fish. The only thing that was a little different this weekend is the walleye. They just seemed to not want to come out and play as much, and I know that it wasn't just that I wasn't the only one that experienced it. I know that a couple of other guys I talked to, they sort of struck out on the walleye this weekend too. So hopefully, the walleye, they're going to get back on track here the next week or so. But the bass fishing has been really good. Right now I'm still fishing a couple really big schools of fish out deep. I've got a couple, I'd say like probably 12 different schools of spotted bass located up in the dam area right now, and can pretty much go to any of those schools and catch a couple really good fish out of it every morning. Sometimes you get lucky and you show up on the school and the whole school wants to bite, and you'll catch 20 or 30 without even moving your boat. But this past weekend with the weather conditions, it just seemed like you had to go from one school to another in order to keep your clients on the fish. So anyway, in the mornings, there's actually some fish, and they're out over open water chasing bait right now. Can't get them to come up for a top water, but I can see them on my electronics, and one of the baits that I've been using to catch some of these fish is just a little pulse jig here. A lot of people kind of know this setup here is like a scrounger head. Basically, what you can do is you just take a little tiny zoom fluke like that. I think this is like the Tennessee shad color. But you just put it on there, and you're going to want to throw this on 6-pound test. And basically, you just throw this out over the open water into those schools of fish that are chasing bait in the morning. 6-pound test on a spinning rod. You really need that 6-pound line because you want to be able to throw this a long ways when those fish are out there chasing bait. And I've been finding fish just kind of scattered over the top of some of those timbered points in the morning, where if you won't catch them throwing at top water, but if you throw this out over them and just reel it really slow, you can pick up a couple fish doing this in the morning. For the most part, though, after that's over, what we've been doing is actually throwing a drop shot rig. The drop shot rig is like the bread and butter of fishing out really deep. It just gets down on the fish really quick. When you get over top of them with your electronics and you see them down there, this bait gets right down on their nose really quick, and just catches a whole lot of fish. The other thing we've been doing on some of these schooling fish is actually throwing a little Ned rig and not really fishing this like up around the bank or on those channel banks, but just basically dropping this right on their head, just like I would with the drop shot rig. Sometimes the drop shot presentation, they don't like it as much, but if you take a little Ned rig with like a little 1/8 ounce head like this and let it drop right on their head, they'll pick this up and eat it. This past weekend, we had some really nice smallmouth show up on our trips. I've been catching some smallmouth, actually throwing a tube just like a drop shot or a Ned rig, just dropping it down on them. You can see these fish. Usually the smallmouth, they look a little bit different than the spotted bass on your electronics. They're usually a little bit tighter to the bottom, and you'll be going down through there. Every so often, you'll see one kind of poke his head up out of the rocks. And usually that's either a smallmouth or a walleye down there on the bottom. And you can drop something like this little green pumpkin tube. They call this like a puke tube color. Real popular bait down here at Table Rock. Just a green pumpkin with a little bit of green flake in it. That's been catching some of those smallmouth. And one other bait that I've been using out here on these schooling fish is just a shaky head. A lot of people like to throw a shaky head, and pretty much a lot of people know to throw this up on points or on those channel banks and just kind of fish it out like you would a jig or something like that. But the shaky head is just a phenomenal bait when it comes to catching just, better than average spotted bass out deep. Same places that I'm dropping, this drop shot rig, you can actually take a shaky head like this and just drop it right down on those fish. And say if you're fishing timber or brush pile, sometimes this comes through that a little bit better even than a drop shot. I've been catching some really good ones on this lately. Just a 3/8 ounce head with just a green pumpkin, green flake, Zoom Magnum shaky head worm on here like this. And this is getting thrown as well on 6-pound test fluorocarbon. With that lighter line, you just get a little bit better feel when you're down there in that really deep water like that. I haven't really had any problems with breaking fish off because once you hit them, if you just keep your line tight, usually they just come right up out of that cover. And as long as you have your drag set correctly and you don't try to horse them, usually they end up in the net. But that's kind of the basic baits that we've been catching fish on down here the past week. I think the topwater bite got a little screwed up. I noticed that a lot of the fish that I've been catching out deep actually went a little bit deeper, and they didn't go a lot deeper, but they went a little bit deeper. Like some of the fish I was catching in like 27 to 28 foot. I was finding them out in like 35 foot this past weekend. And I think that's just because of the way the weather conditions were. It was so slick, so calm that those fish have actually moved out a little bit deeper than they were the previous week. So that might be what's also kind of throwing that topwater bite off a little bit for some people. It's just overall, I think the fish moved a little bit deeper. Right now on Lake Taneycomo, the trout are going absolutely insane. We're catching anywhere from like 80 to 100 trout in just a 4-hour trip. I've got a couple places right now where it's literally every cast you're catching a fish. It almost gets insane. So if you're looking to get some kids started out with fishing and take them on a trip where they're just going to catch a bunch of fish and get to reeling a bunch of fish, right now is a really good time to book a trip with me for trout fishing. The bass fishing has been really good as well. I will tell you, with the bass fishing, you're going to catch bigger fish overall. Right now out on Lake Taneycomo, catching a bunch of like 12 to like 15-inch trout. With the areas that I'm fishing, not so much going after like the real big ones, but we're catching a ton of fish, like anywhere from like 80, 70, 80 to 100 trout in a trip. So it's a lot of fun for people if they just want to catch a pile of fish. This weekend, actually the 24th and 25th, I'm available. I have no trips planned this weekend. If you're looking for a guy down here at Table Rock that'll work hard to get you on the fish, just give me a shout, 314-562-3332. Like to get you out on the water. And until next time, guys, good luck and good fishing.